everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and for those listening via audio, thank you for taking the time to listen. I am trying very hard to maintain composure and not fangirl at the person sitting next to me right now because she is this amazing cozy mystery author, Jennifer J. Chow. And please, if you have not read her, add her to your to be read list. Please go on her website, follow her across platforms because her cozy mysteries make me very happy, and she is a sweetheart too, so I am really looking forward to discussing your books today.
Aw, thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking time out of your Malice experience to talk with me.
Happy to take out time.
You're so impressive. I feel as if these books just sort of took off in the land of cozies. So I'm just kind of curious, what inspired you to write your first cozy mystery?
Oh, my first cozy, I just read Agatha Christie growing up, and my mom and I would kind of read, we didn't have a book club, but we read it together, and I think I just always enjoyed mysteries. I even started back, I was reading Encyclopedia Brown, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, I want to read more. I just didn't realize I could write them until a lot later. Oh. But I did have one short story in elementary school, and it was like a mystery, and I was trying to make it really good for my teacher, but then in the end I think I just threw in some reversal ending. But I still got an A on it, so.
Oh, and that's where it all began. The inspiration. Thank you for being my supportive teacher. So you've always been interested in mysteries then?
I have, definitely in reading them. And then in writing them I was like, I don't know, it seems difficult, right?
Yeah.
You gotta throw in all the clues and throw in the red herrings, but they're fun to write too.
It's one of those, it's really interesting when you take your little reader cap off and put the writer cap on and you're going, when people say that they're a pantser, I'm always going, how do you do that? Because you have to integrate the clues. You're like, oh, this is my red herring, this is my actual bad guy. And you have very intricate mysteries in all of your books, which is very impressive to me because I'm always going, how does your brain function to make these mysteries? Because it does not seem easy.
I think my family must have done that too. They're like, wait, how did you jump from topic A to topic Z?
Do you draft? Do you plot? I mean, honestly, I feel this is just me. Sometimes I picture mystery writers just staring at walls going, I'm thinking things through. Because you were able to do the clues, the red herrings, and yet your big reveal at the end still makes sense. So I'm just curious how you crafted your mysteries because you're very good at it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. How do I craft them? I think I have a mix. You have the plotter who everything, and you have the pantser writing by the seat of your pants, and I think I'm a little bit in between. So I have an overall plot that I'm thinking of, and I love creating in the beginning the suspects list, and everybody's got something that they're hiding, and so I definitely start with a lot of characters, and then as I write, some of it's just really organic too. I mean, I'll write scene by scene and have a little bit bullet points, but some of it sometimes it's oh, this character did this, or there's a little bit of magic for me as I'm writing.
Is it because they're just so fully developed in your head, they just take off running?
I hope so. Well, I see them it's like a movie in my head sometimes, so I'm like, oh, I'll just kind of write down what they do, what they say. And for sure, Marshmallow's kind of like that. Sometimes he just says stuff oh, I'm just gonna write that down.
We do have to talk about the adorableness that is your cozy companion, because off camera or before we started filming, I was saying how along the spine of your books you have the adorable little cat, fluffy face, he's right there, so cute, and they're on all of the book spines and also in the story. So did you know right away that you wanted to have a cat in your cozy?
Well, obviously there's this thing which I didn't know, but there's this kind of mantra that cats sell cozies.
Yeah.
I guess they do. But the cat is just so fun because he can be so snarky, and it's a cat with no filter, right? And so I think it's a lot of fun to play around with. I read a lot of Garfield.
Oh wow.
I feel I don't know, it was in my system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard someone else mention this conference about cats being a big selling point for cozy mystery readers, and I see a lot of cats, but I see dogs too, and then you have the person who's going, oh, we have a parrot now all of a sudden. There is something about cats really resonating with cozy readers, which I find very intriguing.
Yeah, there's just they have personalities. Well, and I kind of feel the cat you can do as a pet because they're so independent, whereas sometimes I feel with other pets you kind of you have to take the time. Dog cozies oh wait, the owner has to go back, walk the dog. It takes a little time for the investigation.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I've thought about that because once you start to analyze books going, okay, why do I like this? If I'm going to write my own cozy, how do I, try and channel this brilliance of what other people have done thus far? And I did start to realize, oh, this is why you are allowed to have your dog at your barkery where you're selling your dog biscuits, because otherwise you have to go back and forth. Or if you're sleuthing, you're walking the dog, peeking over the bushes to see what's going on. Because, yeah, it is interesting to me with the sleuthers who have jobs and you have responsibilities, but you're still trying to solve your mystery. So trying to find that balance. It was a very smart choice in that way.
Although I would say it's hard to bring the cat along sometimes too,
Yeah.
like allowed everywhere as you notice in some of the books.
So cute though. And I know that this is a fictional cozy companion, but I just kind of want to snuggle with the little cuteness, little face over there. Because the book covers, I think, again, they are so beautiful to me. But I love the way this character is brought to life on the cover. There's just something so endearing and sweet, and you're just going, oh, I know you're fictional, but I love you. So was there an actual cat inspiration for this character?
No, probably composite just of like different cats that we've had, relatives in the family. But yeah, not as snarky, at least. I don't know, like internally maybe they were. I just didn't know. But yeah, I don't know, personality just came to life in my head, I guess.
I mean, I also love that it's called the Sassy Cat Mysteries. And so Mimi Lee gets a clue. This lovely book right here was the first one in the series, and so why sassy cats? I'm just curious because you mentioned the practicality of the cats with the sleuther, but I've seen cats in regards to, they're a veterinarian or the vet assistant or they're the dog walkers. They have the cat babysitter sometimes, but this is a very different take on that, which I find so interesting.
I just like having kind of like a equal partner, I guess. And I like that dynamic. It's kind of weird, but like the human-feline dynamic in a way, right? So you've got like the insight for Mimi, but then like Marshmallow really sees things in like a different light, I think. Partially because of the personality, but partially because it's a cat.
I just want to point out that Marshmallow does have a voice in this way. And so, again, that is different than, we're just going to have a cat sort of meander into the scene and walk back out because we just want to make sure that you remember that there is a cat in this apartment building. To me, this cat is the Watson to the Sherlock, which is different because sometimes you think of the cozy companion as the sleuthing sidekick, but your cat, I feel as if, is elevated with a personality where it's not just sidekick, it's almost as if you're bouncing ideas off of the cat.
He's equal. In fact, you would probably say he's like the Sherlock. Mimi's the Watson, but...
Isn't that true? Every character thinks they're the main character. Again, I think just the fact that it's such an original take on the cozy companion, I was just so curious about how this sort of came into being because I do think that these are part of the new millennial cozies and you do have the trade paperbacks instead of the mass markets. So the way that these books are portrayed and written are different, but they are cozies, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know, I just enjoy having this kind of partnership that comes out of their sleuthing, which is kind of a fun take on things. And
I love how you smile with your own characters. I'm like, that must be why readers like it, because you like what you're writing. You can definitely tell when the writer has the love of their characters. I think that shines through, and I can see that happening right now, the way you just talk about them with joy in your face.
Yeah.
There is a lot of humor in this, so I did want to ask you about that. That was one of my questions, because I'm always intrigued by writers who do humor well. It's not just a line here or there, but when it's interwoven throughout the entire narrative. I'm always curious if you do this as you're writing, if you go back and editing and go, I have an opportunity to insert joke here or something like that. How do you make your books comical? How do you do this?
Well, thanks. Yes.
I can be your ego ghost if you ever need someone to be like, hey, I'm having a bad day, did I do something wrong? Like, yes, you wrote this book and I love this line and here's a quote and then I turn this quote into an image. Here you go.
It's so hard. Humor is so hard because I feel like it's just so subjective. And most of it is just like, I think I have fun writing it and just trying to like, what can I put here? Or what kind of situations can I get them in? They're like pretty tricky. So usually a lot of it's organic as I write along. But there's some things that I'll be like, this could be maybe a little funnier. And they're usually like the way I phrase things, or maybe like things that like Marshmallow says, or reactions to him. Usually like, Marshmallow's like a big, big part of the humor stuff.
Again, Marshmallow actually has a voice, which blows my mind, but I love it as a reader. So I'm kind of curious how you figured out, oh yeah, we're going to give the comical lines to our cat, and then go from there, because I, first of all, would not have thought to make the cat vocal, but I also love the fact that the cat isn't just vocal. The cat has, I almost feel like there's a stand-up comedian moment where you're going, oh, here's the hit, here's this hit. So again, the sassy title works very, very well. But that's why I think I'm just so curious going, how do you figure out how to make these things land? Because it is a cozy mystery, which involves murder. Most of the time there's murder, and in your books you do have a certain victim, and so you do have the comedy though, and I'm just kind of curious how you find that balance of, oh, we're investigating something that's a little dark, but somehow I am so happy reading this book.
It's interesting because I feel like it started with this whole like pet human connection. So I'm like, oh, that's intriguing. Like you just, you own a pet, and then just being able to like really bond with them.
Yeah.
And then this is like a step further because Marshmallow like can talk. I mean, telepathically, which is interesting too because he can talk to me, but like no one else can hear him, and so that puts her in like really weird situations as well, especially if she's responding out loud to him. So I think just taking even that, just like more and more, like expanding on this idea that, okay, like if you're gonna have a talking cat, right, it's like there's like kind of not that many boundaries you can do. So that's how I think the Marshmallow can have like such a bigger personality, and you kind of just go with it, and like he can do whatever he wants and enjoy. And that's the fun thing about having the cat, right? He can say whatever he wants, and he can like point out these things about like people that you don't think of, I guess you don't think about as a person, but then you're like, wait, if an animal were looking at the human world, like what would they really think about what we're doing?
I think, because again, you just mentioned the telepathic component, and so I think of these as contemporary, but that does add a, do we call it paranormal, a little bit supernatural? It adds a different take on the contemporary, and so I'm going, how do you explain the sort of rules of how this communication can occur? Because again, Marshmallow can only talk to the owner versus everyone else in the world. So how did you sort of figure out the rules of the world that you were creating?
I just kind of played around. Well, first, I think we were talking about, should we make the cat talk to the publisher, editor? Should we actually have the cat vocally talk? And then I was like, yeah, that's kind of interesting, but I wanted more the telepathy, so that's Marshmallow says, because I thought it would be funnier in certain situations, right? And then there's a little bit of tension too, because like she knows she can talk to him, but like her family doesn't, her boyfriend doesn't, so there's a little bit of added tension because of that as well. I'm not really sure how to market it. I guess some people are like, oh, it's a little bit of paranormal. I think somebody once said, oh, it's like a little like science fiction-y, which I'm not sure I would go that far, but I mean, there is, I guess you could say it's like a touch of magic, maybe, touch of animal magic.
That's why I think I'm so interested by how this sort of comes about, because as the reader, you just accept that the cat can communicate in this way, and there isn't anything else where you're going, oh, all of a sudden this thing magically appeared and disappeared, or there's a ghost wandering around somewhere. It's just, this is the breaking of the rule of the way, of the realism. Like, this is the one thing that pushes the realism boundaries to something where I'm going, okay, is this, I think of it as paranormal. That's how I think of it in my own little head. But I do love that there is something unique and different with the way there's the communication, because it does lend itself to those unique situations and humor that you're not going to have otherwise.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because some people, so I've had readers who are like, oh, I didn't know that the cat could talk. I guess some people, pick it up and they don't like to look at the back or, research about it. And so I did have some readers who were like, oh, all of a sudden, then there's like the cat's voice. And I did have someone say, I just don't usually pick up these books, and I was gonna be like, oh no, should I throw this book across the room? But then they're like, oh, I just kind of just whatever. I just went with it, and then they had fun.
Oh, I think it was really interesting to me because I read the first book with the actual paperback, and then I listened to it on audio, and you have a great narrator. I don't know if you've listened to the narration, but the cat voice, it nails it. Absolutely nails the cat voice. And I think that made it become even more real to me again, when you're reading, sometimes the voices, you understand them, but the personalities I don't think always shine so much for me, because sometimes I'm like, what happened at the end? I want to know. And he did that to me where I'm like, who did this? What happened? Who did this bad thing? And then this sounds so, you're like, she really is a fan. So I read it, listened to it, and then I read it again, and then I was just really invested in this voice, because I don't think I've really seen anything else like that.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's funny because I think my narrator, she's like, she kind of has to like prep herself and make different voices for different characters. So it's so interesting. That's what she has to get in the cat mind.
I give the narrator so much credit because they do the male voices, the female voices. Sometimes there's the Scottish accent, then all of a sudden you have the Texas accent, all in the same book, and there's an actual book that I'm right thinking of in my head where I heard that. I think you were very fortunate with the narrator, so that's why I was curious if you had any say in it, saying who was selected or not, because, again, spot on.
Oh, that's really good. Well, I mean, basically the publisher's like, oh, okay, thinking about doing an audiobook, like, I don't know if they said, are you okay with this editor? But they said, hey, this is the editor we're thinking of. Like, I'm like, okay, sounds good.
Because this is something that I find utterly unique. I am curious if there was any sort of writing challenge that you came across writing a telepathic cat communicator. If there's something you're going, how do I write this? How do we get this across to the reader? How do I convey this? Because you do such a good job with it. I was just curious if you're sitting there typing or writing, however it is you're working on this particular scene, and you're going, how do I convey? How do I do this? Because by the third book, it feels very natural, but I'm sure in book one, there must have been some sort of thinking things through before you're getting the scene in its entirety. So I'm just curious if there was some sort of challenge with making this new sort of, again, I'm just going to go with telepathic cat. We're just going to finish the sentence, telepathic cat.
I think, the two parts that were difficult were, so in the first book, I'm just like, okay, he can talk, and in the second book, I was like, well, maybe I should put a little bit of like origin story behind him, and so I think that was difficult because you have that sort of interesting mix of like you're in the contemporary real world, but then you're talking about things that I'm assuming most people like don't experience, like telepathic cat. So just being able to like kind of inject a little bit of the beginnings of Marshmallow story, but then also be like, it's okay, you're just in this like nice, like imaginary but real world.
Yeah.
So I think being able to do that. And then the other part was just sometimes making sure that he has, I don't know if it's with his like ability, but that he has equal billing in a way with Mimi, because I really do want them to be partners. And so trying to like play up a lot of those, like what can he do as a cat to really like contribute to the investigation,
That's true. I was going to say, there is some cat sleuthing involved. In Marilyn Levinson, her Alison Brooks, she has the library cat, and at one point the cat is chasing, I think it's a mouse or something, and the cat chases the mouse, and then all of a sudden our sleuther is running after the cat and accidentally stumbles upon the clue. But your cat is very much aware of, I am going to go hunt for this particular clue, and I'm going to help you out doing this. There is no accidental stumbling because you're chasing of a cat. This cat has agency. There's something to that, though, where you have a cozy companion who is not just the cuteness component. Your cat contributes to the mystery, which, again, I think is so different from other cozy mysteries I've come across, where the cats are a part of the story, but this one is integral to the narrative.
And it's so interesting because, there are things that Marshmallow can discover. Oh, that's a weird, on a cat level, I guess you would say, that as like people you wouldn't, or even that he's able to do a little more in books 2 and 3, because Nimbus comes in and then he kind of able to talk to Nimbus and then get a little bit of like extra insight into things as well.
I'm trying to think how to say it, because again, I don't want to do spoilers, because if you have not read her books, you should go read them. But again, as a cat, you can get into certain places that a human might not be able to get into. And so the practicality of having a cat sleuther who understands what's going on and then can relay that information, it makes so much sense when you're reading it. I'm going, that must have been some sort of thought process trying to figure that out from the writer perspective, because it does help the story, but how did you get to that point where, oh yeah, this is going to help me? Because for me, I don't know if my brain would naturally think, oh, we're going to have the cat maneuver into this and then report back.
I think maybe it was book 1. It was kind of like a light bulb moment where I'm like, what? How is Marshmallow gonna, like, there's got to be a way that he can really help with this situation. And then the first book has like a dog breeder, so there's like obviously like this animal theme to it. And so I'm like, there's got to be a way that he can somehow like really add and help out with the investigation. And then it was like, oh wait, he can, no spoilers, but like he can do this, and that will really help me out.
I am finally starting to work on the cozy mystery that I've been planning in my head for the last 5 years, and so when you actually start to read cozy mysteries with the writer cap on, you're going, wow, that really is a helpful decision over here. That really moved the plot forward, or oh yeah, that really helped you get that clue down. And so trying to train your brain to think of ways to insert clues or make sense of clues and do the sleuthing, it can be difficult. And so I think that's why I'm so impressed with what you did, because there is an organic, natural way in which the mystery plays out. And I think that just impresses me so much, because you're going, how do I do something like this? How do I channel this? How do you think of things? Because you make the puzzle pieces fit. And when you're someone trying to figure out how to make the puzzle and then piece it all together, I'm going, how do I rip this edge and tape it together and do this? So I was just curious if there was some sort of advice you had for aspiring cozy mystery authors where you're going, oh, this is something I learned and you can think about this on your journey too, because I think you did it beautifully. So I'm just curious if there's any wisdom you would like to impart.
Wow, some of it's just trying to outline. I think outlining helps as I'm kind of like moving the pieces. It's good to have, like, you know, the motive means opportunity for all your suspects.
Important things.
And but I try to like put in clues, and it's okay to go back. Like sometimes I feel like I have clues and then I'm like, wait, is that enough? And then I try to like tweak it and enhance them a little more, but not too much, hopefully, so that the reader like guesses what it is, like on page 2 or something. And then for sure the red herrings, I will like go back and make sure I have like enough of those as well. But in terms of like just the actual mystery, I'm glad that it's organic, because sometimes I feel like, oh, am I just like, in my head, it's like working out. Am I like jumping around too much as I'm going through the actual story? I don't know. I just try to like think of like, I think different scenarios that could happen. So sometimes I'll have like, you know, scrap paper, and I'll be like, okay, well, could this or this or this or this could work, so that, you know, and then I let it kind of percolate in a way, and then be like, wait, which one actually makes the most sense for the characters and for the story? And usually, like, something pops up that I'm like, okay, this actually makes sense for, like, you know, the suspect. Like, it would be like this person, or this is, you know, why.
I did want to ask too, because the titles of your books, I love them. I think there's something unique, but I love that Mimi Lee gets a clue. You have Mimi Lee in all the titles. Mimi Lee reads between the lines, Mimi Lee cracks the code, and so I'm kind of curious how that came about, because you have her name in the title, and it reminds me of Miss Marple in a way. Did you come up with the title? Was this you and your editor? Because I also want to ask how you came up with the name Mimi Lee, so this is kind of a two-part question there. So Mimi Lee, naming her, and then with the title.
Yeah, it's so funny, because sometimes I'll meet people and they're like, for Jennifer, I'm like, they're like, oh, Mimi Lee. So they just call me by my character's name.
They think you're like your character.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's me. So the titles were, okay, so first, I like punny titles, but I was trying to go with animal themes, and so this actual first title, like, it was the marketing team at Berkeley. Mimi Lee gets a clue, because, like, the titles that I had were dog related because, she owns a grooming salon in Hollywood, and there's a dog breeder in the first one with like chihuahuas. And so I had these like doggy pun titles. I had Doggone Dangerous as a working title. I had Pup to No Good as a working title.
That is really cute.
And then she was like, well, it's a little too punny, I guess. So,
like, breaking my heart. Things can never be too punny.
They're like, let's do something else. Let's do something different. Let's do Mimi Lee. And so they're like, how should we play around with this? And so they're like, Mimi Lee gets a clue because, she gets a clue literally in her investigation, and then she kind of gets a clue in her life because she's kind of dealing with like, what am I doing? I'm just starting this grooming salon, and like, she's just like figuring things out for herself.
Yeah.
So I think that's how that one got the title. I should go. Each one has like a different story.
Oh, really?
Immediately, read between the lines. I actually had like a bunch of titles. I felt like, I don't know, I must have given my editor like 20, 30 titles. A spin-off of Mimi Lee, right? And so because it sort of takes place partially like at a school, because in the second book, Mimi's going to have a girls' night out with her sister Alice, who works at a school, but then it's like girls' night out gone wrong because there's a dead body in the parking lot of the school. So then I was like trying to play around with like, like school-related themes. So it reads between the lines for like reading. And you can see there's like a little apple there that they put just as a hint. And then also, she reads between the lines and like figures things out, right? And then Mimi Lee cracks the code, which is funny because this is like my editor's title. She's like, one day this will be a great, great book title. So then I was like, here you go. You can have the book title.
Its title came first. Cart, horse, horse, cart.
Yeah. This is for you, my editor, Angela. So that's how that third one came out.
That is so cute.
And now I can't remember the second part.
Oh no, I mean, how did you name Mimi Lee? It does have that nice roll off the tongue, very literary. Again, it's one of those, the name is short to the point where it works in the title. It's not a very long name where you're not trying to figure out the pronunciation. It works. And there's something, again, I think this is the one where on the spine, I get very analytical, and plus I'm always looking at my bookcases, admiring them, and I do the rainbow bookcases and shelves. And so her name fits perfectly on one line for this. And so I noticed that when I got the book. So again, I purchased them in order 1, 2, 3. And so I think the fact that it was just like Mimi Lee gets the clue. And so I think the way that her name just stands out to me, I was just curious how you named her.
I didn't even think about that, like the placing on the spine, like Mimi, and then the second one.
I think this is what happens when readers are just at home too long during COVID looking at their bookcases.
And license signs. So, yeah, I think, well, the Mimi, I feel like that was something maybe the acquiring editor was thinking about Mimi as like a cute like name. And then the Lee I came up with, just because part of it is I kind of wanted her like, sort of in a way, like her ethnicity, because her mom's, Malaysian Chinese, but then also it was kind of like the twist because it's not really her mom's last name, it's her dad's last name. And he's like Caucasian. But I liked, like, it's kind of like a little rhyming, Mimi and Lee. And it was an extra bonus because, like, when Marshmallow came along, I was like, oh, Marshmallow Lee. It's like,
I was waiting for an M&M joke, like the M&M go together.
An acknowledgement I did with the M&M, like the adventures of like M&M, right? Because they are M&M.
They need their own. I know you can do the special order M&Ms and have people's names and faces. Someday that's got to happen for this book series. Will there be more Mimi Lee in the future?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm curious because you have another book coming out.
Yes.
But at the same time, I was curious going, Mimi Lee is not in this title. And then I had to click on it and read the book blurb. And then I'm going, where's Mimi Lee? So I'm just curious what's going on.
Right. Well, sadly, the publisher is currently putting a pause on the Mimi Lee Sassy Cat series. So it's kind of like on hold where they're like not necessarily planning on continuing,
Mm-hmm.
but then they haven't totally, said we're like totally canceling the series. But for now, they're like, it's on pause, so we'll see. I mean, I guess you could write to the publisher and be like, could we have some more? But right now, I'm working on this new series, which is the Los Angeles Night Market, which is a culinary cozy series. So it's got food themes, it's got a couple recipes in the back.
I am curious though how this kind of came about, because this is your third series or your third different.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go about transitioning to a new series? Because I'm thinking, oh, we're creating an entirely new world, an entirely new set of characters. Do you sort of have to go sit in a different room, get a different soundtrack? How do you transition from one fictional world to another? Because it's almost as if you're going from Earth to Mars to Jupiter or something in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have to. Well, this one, I had the premise in my head, so being able to I think just go back to notes on the characters and then think of different related experiences. Maybe I guess that's a way to put it, because they both take place in Los Angeles, right? Mm-hmm. But this one has a night market in it, so I'm kind of pulling from experiences from night markets that I've been to, like in Asia and in Canada that I've been to, and so pulling kind of from that atmosphere. And then also, as I was growing up, we also had a family restaurant, so then it's helpful because one is pets and one is food. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to switch that way. And the new series has two human protagonists, right? They're two cousins, Yale and Celine Yi, and they they're opposite personalities, but they solve the case together eventually. And so I think just also having those pitting each other as characters, I think helps to get me in a different mood. And it's a very, I try to make the voice different. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're both contemporary and modern and light, but yeah, it's probably a little more serious. She's a little bit more, I guess they're both but more introverted and bookish, I think.
That sounds relatively familiar. I can relate to that.
Yeah, so she, in the beginning of the book, she's working at a bookstore. It's called the Literary Narnia. And so, she has, and it's interesting, so I'm trying to start with the book, the very beginning. It's always it's a twist of, some sort of classical book line, but then, tweaked a little bit.
And I do want to just point out that you are writing in an actual real world place of LA, because sometimes we have the fictional small cozy towns, and that was something else that I thought was especially noteworthy, because there seemed to be this transition to, oh, we have our fictional towns, we have this place that might exist in the middle of America, and I don't think I've read too many cozies set in LA.
Well, yeah, I think it's newer. I think a lot of cozies tend to be small towns, communities, less of the urban areas, which has really been nice with the, I guess, quote unquote millennial cozy. I'm not sure that's really as accurate description, but it's tends to be more urban areas, younger-esque protagonists. So it was a lot of fun to do that. I mean, I still kind of fictionalize the place where they have the night market. It's Eastwood Village, which is not really a place in LA, but it's sort of adjacent to UCLA, and it's a little bit of a riff on the Westwood area of Los Angeles. And so I think but being able to have that fictional, but I don't want to kill off people that I really know in real places, but having that and that community, but then also being closer to a larger geographical region has been nice. And the new series, it's kind of fun because one of the cousins, Celine, is she's from Hong Kong, and so she's sort of hasn't been around the LA area often, and so like part of like kind of their side trips when they're not smoothing, it's like oh, can you take me around LA? And so I like to put like like the little lesser known places maybe in the area that are actually real that like you could visit if you went to the area.
Oh, I love that there's a tourist component where you're going, oh, we can add this to my list if I make it to LA.
Right.
Coming up, aside from your new book, or is there something that you're currently working on that's percolating in the head?
Well, for sure. I mean, for sure already. So this is at least a 2-book series, and then I'm just I'm floating around actually like a new series idea. So
we might be going into series 4?
maybe, or could be continuing with some other series.
I am curious though, because you have your draft done. How long did it take you? Because you already have book 1 coming out, so I'm just curious between book 1 and book 2, how long did you take to write book 2?
It'll take me at least like 6 months to get a working draft, and then like I can run it through some like in the first book. It's like, oh yes, I've got time, oh, you can take whatever, a year, you can. But then as you're in a series, and because cozy readers just love, just continuing to read, it's like the deadline gets like tighter and tighter to be able to like produce it and like have them coming out. So, I mean, I'm hoping that, like people will enjoy, like all the, like, the bubble tea, Death by Bubble Tea. I hope people enjoy that, and maybe they'll continue with that series. So it's kind of like you never quite know, but I just want to be able to like have something where people enjoy and they're just, they're really boosting it, and then hopefully my publisher will see that, and I can work more on those.
Now we have another series by the fabulous Jennifer J. Chow that is coming out for you to look into. So I really hope if you have not read her books, you do look into them and read them and enjoy them.